Today's video is pretty much here to help business owners get their head around AI and a real practical approach to go forward with it. Unfortunately, today there's a lot of crap and hype around AI, and a lot of people are really confused about where they should best use their service or what they should do with it. On one hand, you've got people who are pumping their business with AI and fully around it, and on the other hand, you've got people who are just scared of it and they don't want a bar of it. Now, the real happy medium is somewhere in the middle, where you don't actually have all of these different systems relying on it, but you do have a really good, strong backbone, which sets you free with more time. So AI really is not magic, and it's not a business strategy by itself, but it is still a tool. And like a lot of tools, the value that the tool provides you is really based on how well you understand it and the problem you're trying to solve with it. So in this video, I want to really break down three things. So what is AI in plain English? And how do business owners should think about AI? And third, how can you start using AI inside your business without overcomplicating it? The goal is not to become an AI expert, but rather to get your time back, improving output and reducing your time spent on things that you don't need to spend your time on. So let's start really with what AI is. So, AI, especially the tools most people are using today, works by being trained on a massive amount of data. It learns patterns from that data. And then when you ask a question or give it a task, it generates an answer based on what it's learned and what it thinks is most likely to be useful. This is a really simplified version of AI. Now, it's not sitting there thinking like a human. Doesn't mean it's right, and it doesn't mean the answer it gives you is wise. It's really predicting and generating based off patterns in the context of instructions and data that's been given throughout its training process. So that matters because the quality of what you get out of AI depends heavily on the quality of what you put in. So bad inputs create bad outputs. Vagueness, messiness, always messes things up, and a lot of business owners get this wrong to begin with, and then they get really frustrated and it looks like it's not going to work for them, essentially. People will type in AI often, something like write me a report, and they get a generic report back, and that can really affect how they work with it. So most of the time, the issue is the instruction. You give a staff member poor instructions, and you probably get a poor result from the staff member. And in this case, AI is no different. And in many cases as well, AI is actually more dependent on better instructions because it doesn't understand your business as well as you do. Doesn't know your clients or your tone or your process. So before we talk about automation, prompts, and agents, we really need to understand context and sample structures, examples, and clear outcomes. So business owners will get overwhelmed because they think AI everywhere at once. They're trying to make it across everything all at once. So they'll hear about GPT or Claude or Gemini, like AI agents, quoting jobs, handling staff, automatic email services, and it gets really overwhelming. Honestly, I understand completely. As a business owner myself, it can be quite difficult to get my head around. If you're already running a business, managing these clients and doing all that stuff, it really feels like keeping the thing going. It's a complicated thing to do, and it's really difficult to get our heads around it. But there's some really good news here because you don't need to understand every single AI tool. You just have to understand your business process. That's the part most people will skip. So what they do is they chase the tool, they implement it, but they haven't actually worked out their business and their system. So the best part for this is don't ask how do I use AI? You have to ask what task is in my business is repetitive, slow, annoying, or expensive. Because once you know what the problem is, you can decide whether AI is actually the right tool for you or whether you need to redesign your process. Now, things that it can useful for is like they're on the board here: summarizing meetings, structuring messaging information, admin checklists, drafting client follow-ups, or creating quote descriptions. Now, AI becomes practical in this space once you identify what its literal use is. And this is just practical advice. So AI is not here to replace the owner of the business, but it's more so a tool to facilitate the growth and the time that the owner can spend on the business. It should never replace the business owner's judgment or your standards, but it should make you go faster. So it should help you communicate better, follow up faster, and deliver a better quality system for your clients. So the best use of AI in small business is usually not some like huge big system, but it's smaller things like the follow-up emails you send to clients, or when you have a meeting with people, you summarize that notes and generate a list of to-do lists. You've got job notes, reports, quoting documents, admin checklists, all this stuff that it can do, and they all eat time. But this is where the businesses bleed, essentially, is you might want to get these reports on time, and your staff can stop asking the same questions because you have some kind of chatbot set up in the background which answers their questions for them. And I really think that's the real opportunity here, is not so much AI will do everything, but AI can help remove the drag from the business and allow it to become a much better system. So when we have this system, this is pretty much like the report idea. So we have a report example. So let's just say you run a consulting business or any business where you need to create client reports. So a lot of people will look at this and say, rewrite the whole report for me. But that's not the best way to think about it. I use this example here, where a report is really 5 tasks or more, and it helps you to really get this dialed down. So let's make this practical. Say you run a consulting business or any business where you need to create client reports. A lot of people would look at that and say, AI, write this report for me. But a better way to think about it is a report is not just one task, it's a collection of smaller tasks. So let's say your report has 5 sections. So for example, one section explains the client's current situation, one will analyze the data, one identifies the problem, one does recommendations, and one has our next steps on there. Each of those sections need different information, and each one has a different purpose. So instead of saying AI write the report, you take the template and ask, what does each section achieve? What information do I normally use to fill this out? What does a good example look like? And what should the AI avoid? So a big list of stuff, just formatting how you would normally have that output. Because the first time you set this up, it will take a little bit of time and a bit of thinking. But every time you use it after that, it becomes much faster and faster and faster. And eventually, you'll take something that went from 30 minutes and it will go down to something that is way, way less. So this one here, example, where you have 30 minutes, goes down to 5 minutes of review. So if you're doing like 8 reports a day, it's going to take you 40 minutes instead of 4 hours. So why do systems matter more than tools? The biggest thing here is that AI works best when your business has a clean system. So if your process is messy, AI will not magically clean it up. So you'll have to clean it up yourself. And that's a really important factor here. Automating bad systems just creates crap. So we have to isolate and dial in on making good systems. Before you automate anything, you just have to map it. This is the biggest part. So you go from input to output. And I've got my slide deck back here. This is a perfect example of this. So we have an inquiry that comes in and all these different points in the process, all the way through to asking for a review. This is what an example of a mapping looks like. We have AI structures our messy notes from an inquiry, AI's drafting, and each of those key segments there, you have a human review. And obviously, not all of that needs to be human. You can just have the beginning and the end as human review. So the final review section. So this is an example where we have a good system that's been mapped. And what that enables us to do really is to create a system where AI can seamlessly fit in and help us to achieve our goals. So So the question that I need to answer as well is, how do business actually start? So what we do is we have to keep it simple. Just pick one workflow, not 10 or the whole business. One workflow. Choose something repetitive and valuable, like meeting notes to a to-do list. That's a really easy one to do. Creating drafts of reports, follow-up emails, summarizing customer inquiries, and the list goes on. But just pick one. So gather a few examples, write down what your ideal output should be. If you have an old report or an old quote or an email or a checklist, use that as a reference. AI will perform much better when you can see what looks good, then build a prompt around that. So the prompt should explain kind of the role of the AI, the business context, the input information, required action, structure, tone, and rules. As an example, if you just said write a follow-up email, it won't really go very far. But if you say act as an admin assistant for a small service business, write a warm professional follow-up email to a customer who has received a quote 3 days ago, keep it short, helpful, and not pushy. Mention that we are happy to answer questions and help them move forward when ready. That's a much better example, and it beats being vague every single time. And that's the biggest thing. So at the end of the day, the real value for AI comes from giving them their time back. It's not about looking clever or having the newest tool in our system. It's about getting your time back and stop wasting it on admin purposes. What happens is people are often doing sales, admin, delivery, and all kinds of the admin stuff for their business, and then they're expected to go home and then be present with their family, and that's incredibly difficult. So if AI can help reduce the late nights and the admin backlog, that's absolutely something that needs to get put in place. It's not about the hype and the cool stuff. It's just practical solutions. The goal is not to remove you from the business 100%. It's about making your team and your workload lighter so that you can actually spend time on the business and not in the business. Another thing as well is, if you can avoid spending time at home working on the business because your AI agents or your AI workflows are efficient enough, then you can be more present with your family and with the people that you actually care about. And your time can be better used at work into thinking, leading, building relationships, improving the actual service that you guys offer, training up staff members, and making better decisions about the team. So if you're a business owner and you're trying to work out how to use it, here is a really, really simple version. So don't start with the tool, start with the system. Go back to this page. Essentially, we want to pick one process. We're going to map it from input to output, find the repetitive parts, define what a good result look like, then use AI to support the process. That's how you make it useful. It's not here to magically fix your business, but if you already have a clear process and you're willing to build one, AI can make that process much faster, much cleaner, and easier to repeat. And for a lot of businesses, this is where the real money is. It's not about chasing new tools, but it's actually about cleaning up your workflow. In this case, the best business is the one where the owner can step back and improve the machine. It's about getting out of the business as a sole trader and working on the business. That's the best way to build a better quality service. But ultimately, you need to fix your workflows and your automation strategy will work well. If you just have your crappy quoting system now and you want to fix it for later on, that's not going to work because you're just going to break stuff. And it's going to be a pain and a bottleneck later on. But anyway, guys, I hope that this has helped. Feel free to subscribe if you found some value in it. I'll be making more videos on practical ways business owners can use AI and automation and better systems to save time and experience. Now, I'm going to be covering some things that are not AI as well, but help with automation. It's about system design and system process, and that's what I'm really interested in, getting around that stuff. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next video. I appreciate your time.